This is John from MJG Education. Today we're going to look at the PTE academic reading task, Reorder Paragraph. This presentation will cover test instructions, test procedure, which I'll continually refer back to, things that will help you be more test-wise, a quick procedure that I use for Reorder Paragraph, grammar for Reorder Paragraph that can help, pronouns, I'll give you 2 examples, and there'll be a conclusionary slide. The test instructions, as you'll find them on the exam. The text boxes in the left panel have been placed in a random order. Restore the original order by dragging the text boxes from the left panel to the right panel. Unfortunately, we can't do that with today's examples. Today, you're just going to have to wait 5 seconds, and then each individual answer will show up on the screen in front of you. Now, this is one test procedure. With Reorder Paragraph, there's no perfect way to get to a perfect answer every time. You're going to have to work with it, and grammar plays a lot towards you getting the correct answer. So this is just one way to go about it. Skim the sentences to work out the topic. Read all the sentences carefully. Look for the topic sentence. Usually it doesn't refer to anything that comes before it, and that's the clue. This task is really about referentiality. They use pronouns that refer back to nouns, and that's how you're supposed to figure out the order. Gets a little complicated sometimes, but generally you can find the topic sentence immediately. After you read all the sentences once, it's the only one that doesn't refer to anything. It just kind of sits there in the middle. Move that topic sentence to the right side at the top of the page. Look at the first words of the other sentences, only the first words, because usually there's a logical way that these first words obviously fit in to start your second sentence. Okay, so pay attention to that. Sometimes just look at the first words before you go into looking for the logic of that sentence, the meaning of that sentence. You can always use grammar for clues. We're going to talk about this a little later too. You look for contrast words, but or however, let's say. When you use a word like but or however, that means that something's been mentioned in front of it. Okay, so you know that words like but and however will start to move down in that sequence of 5 sentences. They'll be closer to the bottom than closer to the top. Look at the subject and object of sentences. Sometimes the object will become the subject of the next sentence. Okay, so sometimes you get the dog was very happy, and then the next sentence it said it ate all its food. So it is the pronoun being used to refer back to the dog. And that's what they're talking about. The subject is the dog in the first sentence. In the second sentence, they'll use the word it as a pronoun, and that'll refer to the dog. You have to be aware of your pronouns. Study the internal logic, the meaning of what is said. Okay, sometimes you're going to have to work through that to understand what goes where. You bring all your knowledge into this, right? All those stories, anecdotal evidence that you're used to reading about, topical events that you find maybe in the newspaper, journal articles, all these things that you carry as background schemata, you're going to bring to the forefront and see, wow, does this sentence make sense with everything I know? Sometimes you're going to have to look at the meaning and understand the internal logic to get there. Try and place the other sentences. Reread the text, the 5 sentences in a row to see if they make sense. And that's a good way of testing yourself to see if it makes sense, to see if you got them in the right order. Some of the skills we talk about you may need: knowledge of topic sentences, topics, and controlling ideas, right? That's the first sentence of a paragraph. You can usually figure that out. Knowledge of inferences, how to form conclusions from the information. One sentence, sometimes you have to have a little bit of logic to jump to the next one to see which one follows logically. Parts of speech, including articles, I'll talk about that in a moment. Knowledge of collocation or typical word orders. Again, that goes back to your background schemata that you bring to that test. So reading a lot is always very helpful. A few things you should know before you go in and try Reorder Paragraph. You're only going to get 2 or 3 of these on the PT exam. The total marks are going to be between 8 and 12. That's it. The big scores in reading are reading, writing, fill in the blanks, and fill in the blanks. Those 2 are the big ones. This is number 3 on the list. Text, what you're going to read, will be up to about 150 words. The scoring includes 1 mark for every pair of sentences in the correct order. So you only get a score of 4 for putting 5 sentences together, and it'll usually always be 5 sentences. This is the 3rd highest score. As I mentioned in the reading section, you get 8 to 12 marks. So the other ones, when we talk about reading, writing, fill in the blanks, 20 to 24 marks possible there. And then fill in the blanks is between 16 and 20 marks. So you might pay more attention to reading, writing, fill in the blanks, and reorder paragraph over multiple choice, multiple answer, and multiple choice single answer that score you very few marks. This is generally the procedure I use when I start any reorder paragraph. Place the topic sentence. Usually that's a gimme, you can find that. So you put that away first. And what I do is I usually ask a question of it. And that it usually sets up your second sentence because it's usually a why question and then they give you a reason, which is usually the logical procedure when you move through a paragraph that introduces a new topic. But we'll leave that for now. I'm going to deal with that in the grammar in a moment. Check the first words of other sentences. So you have the first sentence is in place, your topic sentence generally, and then you look at just the first words of the 4 other sentences because sometimes only one word will logically move into the second position. From this point on, the toughest one to place is the third one. If you can get that, the 4th and 5th sentences are just a matter of flipping them to see which one fits more logically. Okay, so the third one's a tough one. Here is where you probably read for meaning or the internal logic of a sentence to try and get that third one in the right place. Complete the rest of the sentences. There's only 2 left at this point. Let me explain further with grammar. So grammar can help with a lot of your problems with reorder paragraph. 1, articles. Okay, if you have a, an, and the, when you introduce a new subject, like a plane, in a normal paragraph, you say, a plane flew overhead. Later on, if you're going to refer to the same subject, the plane, then you use the definite article the, because you've already introduced the plane before. So here you'd say, a plane flew overhead, the plane was red. And that tells you the order of these 2 sentences. A plane will always be ahead of the plane in sentence order. Now, this is another thing I like to do here. If the first sentence is, for example, Toronto's new airport has introduced a new world's first elevating system for luggage. What you do is you ask a question. Just ask yourself, why is it a world first, for example? So if you ask that question, what usually happens is the next sentence explains or gives a reason why, right? So it'll start with, this is because. And so because is telling you it's a reason, and it's attempting to answer that first kind of statement that it made about the world's first. And that happens quite often, so just be aware of that. Always ask a question, and maybe one of the sentences will answer it right away using due to or this is because. First words of a sentence, this is what I was referring to earlier. Sometimes only one word will fit to logically follow the first sentence, right? So sometimes, those who believe, let's say we have an example here of those who believed and others thought. You never put others in front of those because there would be no referent, right? Those who believed maybe in something would always come first and others would be second. It's that sort of thing. If you just read the 4 other words, the first words of every sentence, sometimes that can help you place the second one immediately. It's a really big advantage. Pronouns are also important. I kind of did a separate example of this earlier, but in this example I'm saying the dog ran to its owner. It seemed happy. Now, it is a pronoun, third person obviously, and it refers to a thing, but we refer to animals as things, so it refers to the dog. So it's just a different subject pronoun. This is what this task is really about. It's all about referentiality. All pronouns are substitutes for nouns. So basically, that's what you're trying to figure out throughout this task. Don't forget demonstrative pronouns are there too, this and that and these and those. They point directions, but they are pronouns and they'll refer back to something. Now, another one of these contrast and narrative form words that you got to be aware of, when they use words like but and however, these words always have to have something that comes before them in the text. So it's never going to be like a first sentence, obviously, but there always has to be something else mentioned, and then you say but or you say however. It's always in rebuttal. Always remember but and however tend to move to the bottom of your answers, right? They're not going to be in the second or third sentence. Sometimes they might make it as high as the third, but usually the 4th and the 5th, they get pushed down in the answer. Likewise with nevertheless. Nevertheless is kind of a narrative form. If you gave an example of someone saying, John walked to the store to buy some milk last night. On the way there, his friend Bill picked him up, and they went to his house to watch the hockey game. Nevertheless, after the game, John bought his milk. So nevertheless is used to bring you back to the point in the text where John went off to his friend's house, but initially he was off to get his milk. Nevertheless is another type of word that gets pushed down in the text. It's usually in the fourth or the fifth sentence position. Just be aware of these. These things can help you. Generally speaking, you want to use a procedure. Okay, you have to have something in mind when you approach the reorder paragraph. So get that first sentence out of the way, the topic sentence. When you move to your second sentence, look to first words maybe. Also start to look now into internal logic. When you start reading for the meaning of the sentence to put things in order, that's where all these grammatical clues can help you the most. Try and apply some of them. They might help you out a great deal. Here is a chart of pronouns. 5 types of pronouns in the English language. Subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive adjectives, possessive pronouns, and reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns you're not going to be seeing too often on reorder paragraph. The other 4 types, though, will be used quite liberally, and you should know them. Remember, pronouns are just substitutes for nouns, and like I was suggesting before, on this task, on the PTE, it's all about referentiality. What are the reference? Is what you're always asking yourself to help you put things in order. For the examples that follow, please pause this video for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. That's about the time you have to do a reorder paragraph task. Each correct sentence will appear after 5 seconds until I introduce the second example. Again, please pause your screen. The second example is about to begin in a moment. Unfortunately, there is no perfect way of completing reorder paragraph every time. Hopefully, knowledge of grammar and some of the other techniques that I showed you today will make you well aware of how to decide which sentence follows in order. Best wishes and good luck. You can follow MJG Education on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Tumblr. We'll be updating that constantly, as with our homepage. We specialize in tutorials for the time being, as our website is being developed. So tutorials in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. We also do lots of mock tests that include feedback, oral feedback, if we do them through Zoom, and of course you'll get feedback in a written form as well. We like to emphasize too that we're a Canadian company. You can save 35% if you're dealing with companies that charge you in US dollars. By all means, come back and check us out. We'll save you a fortune. Anyways, thank you very much and have a nice day wherever you are.